Welcome, friend. Tonight we begin with a question that has lived quietly in the human heart for thousands of years, waiting patiently beneath all our noise and movement. It is not a question that belongs to any one culture or tradition. It does not belong only to monks or philosophers or seekers who have stepped away from ordinary life. It belongs to everyone who has ever felt, even for a brief moment, that something essential was missing. The question is simple, but it is not shallow. What does it mean to be truly free? Not the freedom to go wherever we want or to say whatever we think or to choose between 100 different options laid out before us. Not the freedom promised by success, by comfort, by wealth, or by recognition. Those kinds of freedom are fragile. They rise and fall with circumstances. They depend on conditions lining up just right, and when those conditions change, the freedom vanishes. Tonight, we are pointing towards something deeper. A freedom that does not depend on circumstances. A freedom that remains present whether life brings us sunshine or storm, praise or blame, gain or loss. A freedom that cannot be taken away by failure, illness, aging, or death. This kind of freedom does not announce itself loudly. It does not demand attention. It does not arrive with fireworks or applause. Often, it is overlooked precisely because it is so quiet, so close, so ordinary. Before we go any further, you may notice where you are right now. Perhaps you are listening in the late hours of the night when the world has finally grown still. Perhaps you are listening in the early morning before the day has begun to ask things of you. You might be lying in bed, sitting in a chair, or resting somewhere between sleep and wakefulness. Wherever you are, however you are listening, there is nothing you need to change. Simply being here is enough. The ancient teachers who explored this question of freedom did not begin by trying to improve themselves or fix the world. They began by looking very closely at their own minds. They watched how the mind reaches outward again and again, searching for something to hold on to. They watch it how it leans toward pleasure and pulls away from discomfort. They watched how it builds stories about who we are, what we need, and how life should be in order for us to be at peace. And through years of careful observation, something became clear. The freedom we are looking for is not waiting for us at the end of a long and difficult road. It is not hidden in some distant future version of ourselves. It is not something we earn by becoming better, smarter, calmer, or more accomplished. It is available here in this very moment with this very breath. What makes this difficult to accept is that the path to this freedom moves in a direction we are not accustomed to walking. We have been trained from a very young age to believe that happiness comes from adding things to our lives. More knowledge, more experiences, more security, more control, more certainty. We learn to build our lives the way we build collections. We gather achievements, relationships, skills, and identities. We tell ourselves that once we have enough, once we finally arrive at the right place, peace will naturally follow. And so we strive. We fill our days with activity. We make plans and set goals. We improve ourselves, we optimize, we organize, we rush from one task to the next, one responsibility to another, often without ever stopping long enough to ask where we are actually going. At first, this feels purposeful, it feels responsible, it feels like progress. But slowly, something else begins to appear. The more we add, the heavier life starts to feel. The more we chase, the more tired we become. The more carefully we try to control everything, the more anxious we feel when control slips through our fingers, as it always does. And that place of peace we were promised seems to move farther away like the horizon. Always visible, always just out of reach. The ancient teachers noticed this pattern long before modern life made it louder and faster. They saw how human beings exhaust themselves chasing after things that cannot truly satisfy them. They saw how we fill every empty space with doing, thinking, planning, and worrying until the mind becomes so crowded that there is no longer any room to rest. Out of great compassion, they offered a different direction. Not a path of adding more, but a path of releasing what we are already carrying. This path does not ask us to reject life or withdraw from it. It does not ask us to become indifferent or numb. It does not ask us to stop caring. Instead, it asks us to look honestly at what we are holding on to and to gently question whether it is actually helping us or quietly harming us. The teachers discovered that freedom of mind does not come from grasping more tightly, but from learning how to let go. This letting go is often misunderstood. It is not a dramatic act. It does not mean throwing everything away or abandoning responsibility. It is not about forcing the mind to be empty or calm or pure. It is something much simpler and at the same time much more challenging. It is the willingness to stop clinging to experiences we want to last, clinging to identities we want to protect, clinging to beliefs we want to be right, clinging to a version of life that exists mostly in our imagination. Letting go begins the moment we see clearly that what we are holding cannot actually be held. In the teachings that follow, we will walk this path together slowly and carefully. We will not rush. There is nowhere we need to arrive. We will listen to stories from long ago and notice how closely they mirror our own lives. We will look at desire, impermanence, loss, and the sense of self we carry so tightly without questioning. We will not try to fix anything tonight. We will not try to achieve anything. We will simply look and listen and allow understanding to unfold at its own pace. For now, allow yourself to relax. Let the weight of the day rest where it is. Take a slow, deep breath and let it go. There is nothing you need to do to prepare yourself for this journey. You are already here. We live in a world that quietly, constantly tells us that we are not enough. The message does not usually come as a direct statement. No one stands in front of us and says, "You are incomplete." Instead, it arrives in subtler ways woven into the fabric of everyday life. It appears in the goals we are encouraged to set, the comparisons we are taught to make, and the stories we absorb about what a successful, meaningful life should look like. We are told that we need more. More knowledge, more accomplishments, more possessions, more experiences, and over time this message sinks in so deeply that it begins to feel like simple reality rather than conditioning. We come to believe that happiness is always just one step ahead of us, waiting patiently at the next milestone. If we can just finish this project, reach this goal, fix this problem, or acquire this one missing thing, then we will finally be able to rest. So we stay busy, we fill our calendars, we make lists, we set deadlines and measure progress. We move quickly from one task to the next, often without noticing the moment we are actually in. Even when we pause, the mind keeps running, planning what comes next, replaying what has already passed, calculating how to make better use of our time. At first, this constant movement can feel energizing. There is a sense of purpose in it, a feeling that we are building something, improving something, becoming someone. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something else begins to take shape beneath the surface. A quiet tension, a low-level restlessness, a feeling that no matter how much we do, it is never quite enough. We begin to notice that satisfaction, when it arrives, does not stay very long. The achievement we work toward brings relief for a moment, perhaps even joy, but soon the mind moves on. A new desire takes its place, a new standard appears, a new version of enough is quietly raised. This is the illusion of more. It convinces us that fulfillment is always just out of reach, that peace belongs to a future version of ourselves who has finally figured everything out. And because we believe this, we keep reaching forward, leaning into the next thing, rarely allowing ourselves to fully arrive where we already are. The ancient teachers noticed this pattern long before modern life made it louder and faster. They watched how people spent their lives accumulating responsibilities, identities, and expectations, all in the name of happiness. They saw how the mind turns life into a never-ending project, something to be managed and optimized rather than lived. They also noticed something else. The more we try to secure happiness through accumulation, the more fragile our sense of well-being becomes. When our peace depends on having more, then losing becomes terrifying. When our worth depends on achievement, then rest feels like failure. When our identity is built on what we do, then stillness can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. Without realizing it, we place ourselves on a treadmill that never stops. We run, not because we love running, but because we are afraid of what might happen if we slow down. Afraid that if we stop moving forward, we will fall behind. Afraid that if we stop striving, we will be left with a sense of emptiness we do not know how to face. And yet, for many people, there comes a quiet moment of recognition. A moment when the mind asks, often in a whisper, "Is this really it?" A moment when we notice how tired we are, not just physically, but inwardly. A moment when we realize that the peace we keep chasing never seems to last, no matter how hard we work for it. This recognition does not always arrive during a crisis. Sometimes it comes in the middle of an ordinary day, in the pause between tasks when there is nothing particular to distract us. For just a second, the noise softens and we sense that the way we have been living might not actually be leading where we hoped. The illusion of more begins to crack, not because we have failed, but because we have started to see clearly. As the illusion of more slowly loosens its grip, a quieter understanding begins to surface. The problem was never that we wanted things. Wanting itself is natural. The problem was the belief that wanting could finally come to an end through getting. We believed that if we gathered enough success, enough comfort, enough certainty, then the restless movement inside us would finally settle. But the mind does not come to rest that way. Each desire fulfilled quietly gives birth to another. Each goal reached becomes the foundation for a new one. Each moment of satisfaction carries within it a subtle tension because the mind is already preparing to move on. The relief fades more quickly than we expect, and before we realize it, we are reaching forward again. This is why arrival feels so brief. We reach the place we thought would hold us, only to discover that it cannot. The excitement softens, the satisfaction thins, and the mind almost automatically asks the familiar question, "What's next?" The ancient teachers used a simple image to describe this pattern. They said, It is like chasing the horizon. No matter how far we walk, the horizon remains the same distance away. It looks close enough to reach, but it never is. The mistake is not in walking. The mistake is believing that the horizon is a place we can stand. As this pattern continues, something subtle but significant happens inside us. The mind grows heavy, not because of one great burden, but because of countless small ones layered on top of each other. Plans multiply, responsibilities expand, expectations quietly accumulate. Each day adds new things to manage, new things to remember, new things to worry about. The mind becomes crowded. At first, we believe we can organize it all. We rearrange our priorities. We promise ourselves that things will slow down soon. That once we finish this phase or solve this problem or get through this season, we will finally have time to breathe. But the season never quite ends. Even when the body stops, the mind keeps moving. We lie down at night, but the thinking does not lie down with us. It reviews the past. It rehearses the future. It replays conversations and imagines outcomes. Rest becomes shallow, fragmented, incomplete. And somewhere in this constant motion, we lose touch with something essential. We lose the ability to be present without doing. We lose the capacity to rest without justification. We lose the simple ease of being alive without needing life to be different. The ancient teachers saw clearly that this endless adding does not lead to freedom. It leads to exhaustion. And exhaustion, no matter how productive it appears, is not peace. So they asked a different question. What if the problem is not that we do not have enough? What if the problem is that we are carrying too much, too many unfinished expectations, too many identities we feel obligated to maintain, too many ideas about who we should be and how life should unfold? From this perspective, freedom does not come from gaining something new. It comes from releasing what is unnecessary. It comes from seeing that much of what we carry is not required for life to continue, but quietly drains our energy and attention. At first, this realization can feel unsettling. If we stop striving, who will we be? If we loosen our grip on improvement, what will give our lives meaning? These questions arise because the illusion of more has shaped our sense of self for a very long time. And yet beneath the unease, there is also relief. The possibility that we do not need to run quite so hard. The possibility that peace is not a reward we earn but a state we return to. The possibility that rest has always been available, buried only beneath layers of effort. The illusion of more does not collapse all at once. It softens gradually as we notice how much energy we have spent chasing what never truly arrives. And as it softens, space begins to open. Space to pause. Space to breathe. Space to consider that another way of living might be possible. Long ago, in the high mountain regions of the East, there lived a monk who did not belong to any great monastery and held no impressive title. The mountains he walked were old and vast, their peaks often disappearing into clouds, their valleys holding small villages where life moved slowly, shaped by weather and seasons rather than ambition. This monk owned almost nothing. His robes were worn and patched, their color faded by years of sun, rain, and wind. He carried no bag of possessions, no scrolls of teachings, no letters of introduction from famous teachers. He had no fixed home. Wherever night found him, there he slept. Sometimes it was in shallow caves where the stone walls were cool and damp and the only sound was water dripping somewhere in the darkness. Sometimes it was beneath the open sky, wrapped in his thin robe, feeling the cold mountain air on his face while stars burned silently above him. Sometimes villagers welcomed him into their homes, offering whatever simple food they had to share: a bowl of rice, a few pickled vegetables, a cup of warm tea. By the measures of the world, this monk had nothing: no wealth, no position, no security. If you had passed him on a narrow mountain path, you might have mistaken him for a beggar, just another poor traveler moving from place to place. And yet those who met him sensed immediately that something about him was different. When the monk arrived in a village, word spread quietly from house to house. Farmers set down their tools. Elderly women stepped out from their kitchens, hands still smelling of wood smoke and cooking oil. Children ran down dusty paths, their laughter echoing between stone walls. People gathered, not because the monk demanded attention, but because his presence offered something rare. In his company, the air felt lighter, the mind felt less burdened, the heart felt strangely at ease. It was as though a cool breeze had passed through the village on a hot day, bringing relief that no one had known how to ask for. The monk spoke little. When he did speak, his words were simple and unadorned. He laughed easily. He listened deeply. He seemed to carry no invisible weight. Scholars and teachers heard of him and traveled great distances, climbing steep paths in hopes of receiving his wisdom. Yet, when they arrived, they found no lectures, no formal teachings, no elaborate displays of knowledge. The monk did not present himself as someone special. He continued to wander. He continued to sleep wherever night found him. He continued to share meals with ordinary people. What he carried was not knowledge in the usual sense. He carried an ease that could not be learned from books, a freedom that did not depend on circumstances, a lightness that came not from having little, but from holding on to nothing. Those who spent time with him noticed something striking. Although he had witnessed sorrow, hardship, and loss throughout his years of wandering, there was no bitterness in him, no tightness, no sense that life had wronged him. Instead, there was a quiet joy, steady and unforced, like a deep river flowing beneath the surface. The monk had discovered something that endless effort could never provide. He had discovered the freedom that comes from letting go. One evening, the monk sat down on a flat rock overlooking a wide valley. The light was fading, turning the distant peaks soft and gold. Below him, a stream moved steadily through the land, and birds were settling into the trees for the night. In that stillness, he took up a brush and began to write. What he wrote was not a teaching meant for others. It was not a text to be preserved or passed down. It was something more intimate than that. He addressed it to himself as though speaking to his own mind, offering guidance, the way an old friend might speak to someone who has lost their way. The poem he wrote would later become known not for its beauty but for its honesty. It began not with comfort, but with a gentle wake-up call. The poem the wandering monk wrote was not harsh, but it was direct. He did not scold his mind or try to discipline it with force. Instead, he spoke to it the way one speaks to a dear friend who has fallen asleep and begun to dream without knowing it is dreaming. His tone carried urgency, but it was the urgency of care, not fear. He began by calling the mind to attention. "Listen," he said, "you have been wandering for a very long time. You have been distracted, pulled in countless directions, hypnotized by appearances. You have been mistaking movement for progress and busyness for meaning. Do you see this? Are you aware of what is happening?" There was no accusation in these words, only an invitation to wake up. The monk continued, pointing gently but clearly to the root of the problem. Right now, in this very moment, the mind is under the spell of mistaken seeing. It believes that the things it encounters are solid and lasting. It believes that happiness can be secured by arranging circumstances just right, by acquiring the right things and avoiding the wrong ones. But this, he said, is a dream. Life as the mind usually experiences it is not nearly as solid as it appears. The things we chase shimmer with promise, but when grasped, they reveal their emptiness. The satisfaction they offer is thin and fleeting, vanishing almost as soon as it arrives. Do not let yourself be carried away by this empty life, the monk warned. Not because life is meaningless, but because mistaking its surface for its depth leads only to exhaustion. Then the poem turned towards something painfully familiar. Your mind is spinning around, carrying out a lot of useless projects, he wrote. It is a waste. Give it up. He was not speaking only of worldly projects. He was pointing to the deeper habit of endless mental construction. The 100 plans the mind wants to accomplish. The constant rehearsing of futures that may never arrive. The silent pressure to become something more, something better, something finally complete. All of this thinking, he said, only weighs the mind down. The projects never end. They spread outward, like ripples in water, one giving rise to the next, each demanding attention, none ever offering final rest. The mind becomes completely distracted, pulled so far outward that it forgets how to simply be present. And then came the monk's most startling advice. Do not be a fool, just sit quietly. This was not a rejection of responsibility or care. It was a rejection of compulsive striving. It was a reminder that wisdom does not arise from constant motion, but from stillness. That clarity does not come from adding more thoughts, but from allowing the noise to settle. The poem then turned its gaze towards spiritual practice itself. The monk knew that even on the sacred path, the mind can find new ways to cling. He described a person who beats a small ceremonial drum, performs rituals, and impresses others with their devotion. He described someone who speaks eloquently about letting go of attachment to the body, yet still clings tightly to comfort and fears discomfort. He spoke of fine robes, beautiful beads, special cushions, and elaborate practices. All the outward signs of spirituality that can quietly become costumes, disguises worn by the ego. Forget about it, he wrote. Not because these things are wrong, but because attachment can hide inside them just as easily as it hides inside wealth or ambition. We can become so busy practicing spirituality that we never quite get around to being free. Practices are tools. They are fingers pointing at the moon. But if we become fascinated with the fingers, if we polish them and decorate them and argue about whose fingers are best, we may never look up and see what they are pointing toward. At the end of the poem, the monk set everything aside and offered the heart of his realization. If you let go of everything, that is the real point. Even if you do not know how to practice perfectly, just let go of everything. That is what I really want to say. Not some things, not most things, everything. The monk did not mean that life should be rejected or denied. He meant that clinging is optional, that the weight we carry is not imposed on us by life itself, but by the way we grasp at it. He had learned this not from theory, but from years of walking lightly through the world, from sleeping under stars and sharing simple meals, from watching desires rise and fall without obeying them, from discovering that freedom does not require perfect conditions, only an open hand. And with those words, the path quietly turned away from adding and toward the radical simplicity of letting go. When the ancient teachers spoke about letting go, they were often misunderstood. Many people imagined that letting go was something reserved for those who had withdrawn from the world, something only possible after years of discipline, retreat, and renunciation. They assumed it required special knowledge, perfect conditions, or an extraordinary level of spiritual maturity. But the teachers themselves knew otherwise. They discovered that letting go is not a reward at the end of practice. It is the practice. This is where the mind often becomes confused. We tend to believe that first we must learn how to practice correctly, and only then, once we are sufficiently skilled, calm, or wise, we will be able to let go. We imagine letting go as a final act, something that happens once everything else is in place. The ancient path turns this idea upside down. Letting go does not wait for perfection. Letting go does not depend on understanding everything. Letting go does not require us to become someone different. It begins exactly where we are. The wandering sage knew this from his own experience. He had seen that the mind is always trying to prepare itself for a future moment when it will finally be ready to rest, ready to be peaceful, ready to be free. But that future moment never arrives, because readiness itself becomes another thing the mind clings to. Even spiritual effort can become a subtle form of grasping. We say to ourselves, once I understand this teaching more clearly, then I can relax. Once my meditation improves, then I can let go. Once I become less distracted, less reactive, less flawed, then freedom will be possible. And without realizing it, we postpone freedom indefinitely. The teacher saw that this habit of postponement is itself a form of attachment. We cling to the idea, our idea of a better version of ourselves, and in doing so we overlook the freedom that is already available in this moment. Letting go, as they understood it, is not a dramatic gesture. It is not a single decision that permanently solves everything. It is a series of small, ordinary releases that happen again and again throughout the day. A thought arises, and instead of following it, we let it pass. An emotion appears, and instead of resisting or feeding it, we allow it to move through us. A desire pulls at the mind, and instead of obeying it automatically, we notice it and soften our grip. Nothing special needs to happen for this to be possible. The mind does not need to be quiet. The body does not need to be relaxed. Life does not need to be arranged in a particular way. Letting go can happen in the middle of confusion. It can happen in the midst of discomfort. It can happen even when we do not feel particularly wise or centered. This is why the sage said, even if you do not know how to practice perfectly, just let go. He was pointing to something immediate and practical. Letting go is not something we do once we have solved our problems. It is something we do with the problems themselves, with the tension in the body, with the restlessness in the mind, with the dissatisfaction that keeps whispering that something is missing. We do not need to get rid of these experiences in order to let go. We let go by no longer clinging to them as defining who we are or what this moment means. In this sense, letting go is not passive. It requires a kind of attentiveness, a willingness to see clearly what is happening and to stop adding unnecessary struggle to it. It is the decision to stop tightening around experience and to allow it to unfold according to its nature. At first, this can feel unsettling. If we are not holding on what remains, if we stop grasping, will everything fall apart? These questions arise because the habit of clinging has been with us for so long that it feels like a form of safety. But the ancient teachers discovered something unexpected. When we loosen our grip, life does not collapse. When we stop clinging, awareness does not disappear. When we let go, something remains that is already steady, already present, already free. This understanding does not arrive all at once. It deepens gradually through repeated moments of release. Each time we let go, even briefly, we taste a freedom that does not depend on getting anything right, and that taste changes everything. As this understanding matures, something subtle begins to shift in how we relate to effort itself. We start to notice that much of what we call practice is actually driven by tension. We practice in order to become someone. We practice in order to fix what we believe is wrong. We practice with a quiet sense of urgency as though peace were late and we were falling behind. The ancient teachers saw this clearly. They noticed that even sincere spiritual effort can be fueled by dissatisfaction. A subtle belief that who we are right now is not acceptable, that this moment is somehow incomplete. That freedom belongs to a future self who has practiced enough, understood enough, let go enough. And so practice itself becomes another project, another thing to manage, another thing to improve, another identity to maintain. We become practitioners in the same way we become professionals, parents, achievers, or seekers. We build an image of ourselves as someone who is on the path, someone who is doing the right thing, someone who is progressing towards something better. The teachers did not say that practice is useless. They said something far more precise. Practice becomes a problem when it is used to avoid letting go. When we practice in order to escape the present moment, we reinforce the belief that the present moment is not enough. When we practice in order to become free later, we overlook the freedom that is already available now. This is why the wandering sage warned against becoming fascinated with spiritual appearances. The cushions, the beads, the rituals, the techniques, the refined language of insight, all of these can be helpful, but they can also become distractions if we mistake them for freedom itself. We polish the tools, organize the practices, perfect the form while quietly holding on to the same old patterns of clinging beneath the surface. We may learn to speak beautifully about impermanence while still fearing change. We may recite teachings on non-attachment while still grasping at comfort. We may appear calm on the outside while the mind continues its endless reaching inside. The sage called this out not to discourage practice, but to return it to its essence. He reminded us that practices are fingers pointing at the moon. They are meant to direct our attention, not to become objects of attachment themselves. If we become so absorbed in the fingers that we never look up, we miss the very thing they are meant to reveal. And what they reveal is disarmingly simple. Let go of everything, not as an abstract ideal, but as a lived attitude. Let go of the need to do practice perfectly. Let go of the need to understand everything before relaxing. Let go of the idea that freedom is fragile and must be carefully constructed. Even the idea of letting go can become something we cling to. We tell ourselves, I must let go, and immediately the mind turns it into another task, another standard, another thing to measure ourselves against. When this happens, letting go has already been lost. True letting go is quieter than that. It is the softening that happens when we stop arguing with experience. It is the release that happens when we see that holding on is unnecessary. It is the natural opening that occurs when the mind recognizes that nothing needs to be defended. The sage did not offer a complicated method. He offered trust. Trust that awareness does not need to be held together. Trust that life does not fall apart when we stop gripping it. Trust that freedom is not something we manufacture, but something we uncover by removing what obscures it. When we let go in this way, we are not withdrawing from life. We are meeting it more directly, without armor, without constant commentary, without the tight fist of control. This does not mean that effort disappears. It means effort becomes lighter, more honest, less driven by fear. Practice becomes an expression of curiosity rather than a strategy for self-improvement. And gradually, almost without noticing, we begin to experience something unexpected, moments of ease that do not depend on circumstances, moments of clarity that do not come from effort, moments of peace that arise simply because nothing is being grasped. These moments do not announce themselves, they do not demand recognition. They come and go quietly, like a breeze moving through an open window. The sage knew that once this simplicity is tasted even briefly, the direction of the path becomes clear. Not toward accumulation, not toward perfection, not toward becoming someone else, but toward a steady, gentle releasing, again and again, moment by moment, without drama. And from this simple act of letting go, the path begins to reveal its next quiet turning. There is a misunderstanding that quietly shapes the way most of us experience life. We tend to believe that our suffering comes from the things around us, from difficult circumstances, from people who behave in ways we do not like, from situations we cannot control, from losses we did not choose, from bodies that age and weaken, from a world that refuses to arrange itself according to our wishes. When something painful happens, the mind immediately points outward. If only this were different, if only that had not happened, if only this person would change, if only I had more control. From this perspective, freedom seems to require changing the world, fixing circumstances, securing the right conditions, eliminating discomfort and uncertainty. It feels logical. If pain comes from outside, then peace must come from managing what is outside. But the ancient teachers looked more closely. They noticed that two people can experience the same situation and suffer in completely different ways. One may feel crushed, while the other remains relatively at ease. One may be consumed by anger or fear, while the other responds with clarity and steadiness. The difference they saw was not in the situation itself. It was in how tightly the mind was clinging. This insight challenged one of our deepest assumptions. It suggested that the world of appearances is not the prison we imagine it to be. The sights, sounds, sensations, and events of life are constantly changing, flowing through us moment by moment. They come and go on their own without asking for permission. What traps us is not their presence, What traps us is our grasping. We cling to pleasant experiences, demanding that they stay. We cling to unpleasant experiences, demanding that they leave. We cling to neutral moments, wishing they were more interesting or meaningful. And in this constant tug of war with reality, suffering is born. The teachers described clinging as a kind of tightening in the mind, a contraction around experience, a refusal to allow things to be exactly as they are. This tightening can be obvious, as in strong desire or aversion, or it can be subtle, hidden inside preferences, expectations, and silent resistance. Most of the time, we do not even notice that we are clinging. We say, "I just want things to work out. I just want to feel okay. I just want this discomfort to stop." These seem reasonable, even harmless. But beneath them lies the assumption that peace depends on experience changing in a particular way. And as long as that assumption remains unquestioned, the mind stays bound. The ancient teachers did not deny that life contains pain. They did not pretend that loss does not hurt, or that difficulty can simply be ignored. What they pointed out was more subtle and more powerful. Pain is part of life. Suffering is optional. Suffering arises when pain is met with clinging, when the mind tightens around what is happening and insists that it should be otherwise, when we refuse to let experience move through us freely. This is why they said that freedom does not come from controlling what we encounter, but from understanding our relationship to it. To see this clearly requires honesty. It requires us to notice how quickly the mind reaches out to grasp what feels good, how instinctively it pushes away what feels bad, how automatically it tries to stabilize what is by nature unstable. We begin to see that much of our inner struggle has little to do with the world itself. It comes from the silent effort to hold life still, and life cannot be held still. This realization does not immediately free us, but it begins to loosen something. It introduces a new possibility. What if the key to peace is not found in changing experience, but in changing how we relate to experience? What if the door we have been pushing so hard is not locked at all? To make this teaching unmistakably clear, the ancient teachers often spoke in very direct terms. They said that we are not bound by the things we see, hear, touch, taste, or think. We are bound by how we cling to them. The world of appearances moves freely, changing from moment to moment, but the mind reaches out and tries to pin it down, to secure it, to make it behave. And this reaching is where the trouble begins. A pleasant experience arises, and immediately the mind tightens around it. It wants to keep it, repeat it, protect it from ending. Fear appears alongside pleasure, because the mind knows, even if it does not admit it, that pleasure is unstable. An unpleasant experience arises, and the mind reacts in the opposite way. It resists, it contracts. It demands that the experience go away as quickly as possible. Anger, frustration, and despair are born from this refusal to allow what is already here. Even neutral experiences are not spared. When nothing particularly good or bad is happening, the mind often feels restless. It searches for stimulation, meaning, or distraction, unable to rest with simplicity. In each case, the experience itself is not the prison. The prison is the grip. The teachers described this grip as a habit so old and so familiar that it feels like part of who we are. We have been clinging for as long as we can remember. We cling to comfort. We cling to certainty. We cling to our sense of control. We cling to the story of who we are and how life should unfold. And because this clinging feels normal, we rarely question it. But the teachers did question it. They asked a radical question. What happens if we stop clinging? What remains when the mind no longer insists that reality conform to its preferences? They discovered something surprising. When clinging relaxes, awareness does not disappear. When grasping softens, life does not fall apart. When resistance ends, experience continues, but without the added burden of struggle. The world still changes, pleasure still fades, pain still arises, loss still happens. But without clinging, these experiences move through us like weather through an open sky, leaving far fewer scars behind. This is why one great teacher said that the problem is not the sound, but the echo we create in our own minds. The sound arises and passes on its own. The echo lingers only because we keep feeding it. Freedom, then, is not the elimination of experience. It is the end of unnecessary echo. The teachers were careful to point out that this does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. Non-clinging is not the same as not caring. In fact, it allows for a deeper form of care, one that is not distorted by fear of loss or craving for control. When we stop clinging, we can respond to life more intelligently. We can act where action is needed. We can rest where rest is possible. We can feel sadness without being consumed by it, and joy without being afraid of its ending. The shift is subtle but profound. Life moves as it always has. The difference is that we are no longer being dragged behind it. At some point, this teaching was expressed with great simplicity by a master speaking to a student who was desperately searching for freedom. The student asked, "What is it that binds me?" And the teacher replied, "Nothing binds you. You bind yourself by holding on." In that moment, the direction of the path became unmistakable. The door was never locked. The chains were never real. The key had always been in the hand that refused to open. When this is seen clearly, even for a moment, the sense of being trapped begins to dissolve. Not because life has changed, but because the relationship to life has changed. And with that change, a quieter freedom becomes possible. A freedom that does not require perfect conditions. A freedom that remains present even as experience continues to rise and fall. And from this understanding, the path turns inward towards seeing how deeply the habit of clinging is woven into the very sense of self. To understand how deeply clinging shapes our suffering, the ancient teachers often invited people to look not at philosophy, but at the natural world. So let us take a walk together. Imagine that we are moving slowly through a forest in autumn. The air is cool and carries the faint earthy scent of fallen leaves. Sunlight filters down through branches that are beginning to thin, creating shifting patterns of golden shadow on the ground beneath our feet. The forest is quiet but not silent. There is the soft sound of leaves crunching underfoot, the distant call of a bird settling into the trees, the subtle movement of wind brushing against bark and branches. Everything feels alive, yet unhurried. This forest has been here a long time. The trees are old, their trunks thick and twisted, their roots spreading wide and deep into the soil. They have witnessed countless seasons come and go. Spring after spring of new growth. Summer after summer of fullness. Autumn after autumn of release. Winter after winter of bare waiting stillness. As we walk, we begin to notice something unexpected. Running through the forest, sometimes clearly visible, and sometimes half hidden by moss and undergrowth, are old stone walls. They stretch for long distances, disappearing into the trees and then reappearing again, further along the path. Some sections are still standing, the stones fitted together with care. Other sections have collapsed, the rocks scattered and softened by time. We pause and look more closely. Each stone was placed by human hands. Each one was lifted, carried, and set down with intention. Someone chose where these walls would stand. Someone believed they would last. Imagine the person who built them. Perhaps it was a farmer working in the early morning light before the heat of the day arrived. His hands were rough from years of labor, his body tired but steady. He placed the stones one by one, building boundaries, shaping land, preparing a future he hoped would be secure. He had plans, he had worries, he had hopes for himself and for those who would come after him. The walls were part of his life, part of his effort to create stability in a changing world. And in a way, the walls did last. They remain here long after the hands that built them have returned to the earth. But they remain only partially, broken, weathered, slowly dissolving back into the landscape that now surrounds them. The farmer himself, where is he now? Where are the crops he planted? The home he lived in? The seasons he struggled through and celebrated? All of it has passed. As we continue walking, we notice something else nearby. The outline of a foundation barely visible beneath leaves and roots. Stones marking the shape of a house that once stood here. The walls are gone. The roof is gone. The doorway that welcomed people in no longer exists. And yet this was once a place of life. A family gathered here. Meals were cooked, children laughed and played, arguments were had, stories were told, tears were shed. Ordinary moments filled these rooms, moments that felt permanent while they were happening. Those lives were as real as ours are now. They woke each morning believing the day belonged to them. They loved, worried, and planned for the future. They assumed, as we do, that there would be time. Now only stones remain. The forest has slowly reclaimed what was built. Roots weave through the gaps. Moss covers sharp edges. Leaves fall year after year, quietly erasing the lines that once seemed so important. Nothing in this scene feels tragic. It feels natural. The forest does not resist what has happened. It does not mourn the walls or long for the house to return. It simply continues growing, changing, responding to the conditions of each moment. And in this quiet persistence, the forest offers a teaching that does not use words. Everything that is built will one day change. Everything that arises will one day pass. Nothing that takes form can remain untouched by time. This is not a mistake in the design of life. It is the design. When we see this clearly, not as an idea but as a lived reality, something inside us begins to soften. We begin to sense that the struggle to hold things still may be unnecessary, that the effort to make life permanent may be the source of our tension. The forest is not trying to preserve itself as it was. It is allowing itself to become what it is. And perhaps quietly, it is inviting us to consider the same possibility. As we stand among the trees and fallen stones, the teaching of impermanence begins to move from thought into feeling. It is one thing to understand that things change. It is another to see that change is happening everywhere all the time, without exception. The forest does not make speeches about impermanence, it simply demonstrates it. Leaves fall without apology. Trees grow and die without hesitation. What once stood tall slowly returns to the earth, and what has returned to the earth quietly nourishes what will grow next. Nothing here is wasted. Nothing here is preserved. As we walk deeper into the forest, the ground beneath our feet tells the same story. Fallen leaves from years past have broken down into rich soil. That soil feeds the roots of new trees which will one day drop their own leaves, continuing the cycle. Impermanence is not destruction, it is transformation. The ancient teachers emphasized this again and again. Change is not an interruption of life. It is the movement of life itself. When we resist change, we are not resisting a problem. We are resisting reality. This is where suffering begins. We cling to what is familiar. We cling to what feels safe. We cling to what we love, hoping it will stay exactly as it is. And when it inevitably shifts, as all things do, we feel betrayed, shocked, as though life has broken a promise it never made. But the forest made no promises. It does not insist that summer should last forever. It does not complain when autumn arrives. It does not fear winter. Each season is met fully, then released. The ancient teachers saw that human suffering often comes not from loss itself, but from surprise, from the belief that things should have been different, from the hidden expectation that impermanence should not apply to us, to our loved ones, to the parts of life we cherish most. This is why one teacher said that it is not impermanence that hurts us, but our resistance to it. When we accept impermanence deeply, something changes in the heart. We stop postponing love. We stop assuming there will always be more time. We stop taking moments for granted. Each encounter becomes precious, not because it will last, but because it will not. Each experience becomes vivid because it is fleeting. The awareness of impermanence sharpens our presence instead of dulling it. The forest knows this. The leaves do not cling to the branches in panic. When the time comes, they release. They fall slowly, twisting and turning through the air, landing softly on the ground where they will become part of something else. There is no tragedy in their falling, only completion. To live in harmony with impermanence does not mean becoming detached or cold. It means learning to love without gripping, to care without trying to freeze life in place, to participate fully while knowing that nothing belongs to us. The forest does not own itself. The trees do not possess the seasons. The stones do not claim permanence, and yet everything belongs. When we see impermanence clearly, we stop fighting the flow. We stop exhausting ourselves by trying to build walls against time. We learn to stand in the middle of change without losing our balance. This is not resignation. It is wisdom. The forest does not surrender because it is weak. It surrenders because it understands. And in that understanding, it continues a live, responsive whole through every transformation. And as the forest quietly teaches us how to release what cannot be held, the path turns next toward the restless movement of the wanting mind itself. After seeing impermanence written so clearly in the forest, the ancient teachers turned their attention to something even closer than trees and stones. They turned toward the mind itself. They noticed that although everything around us is constantly changing, there is a particular movement inside us that seems never satisfied, a movement that reaches forward, searches ahead, and leans toward what is not yet here. They called this movement craving or wanting. The wanting mind is subtle. It does not always announce itself as desire. Sometimes it appears as ambition, sometimes as curiosity, sometimes as concern for the future. It can sound reasonable, even responsible. It often speaks in quiet, persuasive tones. Just one more thing, just a little improvement, just a bit more security. At first glance, the wanting mind seems harmless. After all, wanting helps us survive. It motivates us to eat, to seek shelter, to care for ourselves and others. The teachers did not deny this. They were not opposed to desire in a simple biological sense. What they examined was something deeper. They saw that beyond basic needs, the wanting mind develops a habit of never resting. It begins to search not just for survival, but for completion. It quietly promises that satisfaction lies somewhere else in the next experience, the next achievement, the next condition. And because of this promise, the mind rarely settles. Even when something pleasant is present, the wanting mind is already anticipating its ending. It whispers that we should enjoy it quickly or plan how to repeat it or prepare for its loss. Pleasure becomes tinged with anxiety and rest becomes fragile. The teachers noticed something striking. The wanting mind is not interested in what is here. It is interested in what could be. It pulls awareness out of the present moment and stretches it toward an imagined future. In doing so, it creates a subtle dissatisfaction with what is already available. The current moment begins to feel incomplete, insufficient, lacking. This dissatisfaction does not come from the moment itself. It comes from comparison. The wanting mind compares what is happening now with an image of what might happen later. And because imagined futures can be endlessly refined, the present almost always falls short. No matter how good things are, they are measured against something else. This is why wanting does not end when desire is fulfilled. A goal is reached and there is a brief sense of relief. But soon the mind adjusts. The new situation becomes normal. A new standard is set, and wanting resumes its quiet forward motion. The teachers compared this process to feeding a fire. Each desire fulfilled is like adding fuel. The flame flares briefly, then settles back into hunger. The fire never says enough. It only knows how to burn. And yet, because this pattern is so familiar, we rarely question it. We assume that wanting is simply how the mind works. That rest will come later after one more task, one more improvement, one more solution. We postpone ease again and again, believing it belongs to a future version of ourselves. The teachers saw the cost of this postponement. Life is lived moment by moment, always in the present. When attention is habitually pulled into the future, we miss what is actually happening. We eat without tasting, we listen without hearing, we move through our days half present, always leaning toward what comes next. The wanting mind does not allow us to arrive. Even when we stop physically, it keeps moving internally. It reviews, anticipates plans, evaluates. It turns life into a series of stepping stones toward an imagined destination that is never quite reached. The teachers did not condemn this mind. They understood it. They saw that it was trying in its own way to protect us, to secure happiness, to avoid pain. But they also saw that its strategy was flawed. The wanting mind searches for stability in what is unstable. It seeks completion in what is incomplete by nature. It looks for rest and movement. And because of this, it quietly perpetuates dissatisfaction, even in the midst of abundance. To see the wanting mind clearly is not to suppress it or fight it. It is to recognize its pattern, to notice how it pulls attention away from what is already here, to observe how often it asks for more even when nothing is missing. This seeing is the beginning of freedom. Not freedom from desire altogether, but freedom from being driven blindly by it. Freedom from the belief that happiness always lies somewhere else. The teachers knew that once this movement is seen clearly, something important begins to change. The mind starts to slow down. To understand the wanting mind more clearly, the ancient teachers often used simple, ordinary examples rather than abstract ideas. They noticed that wanting does not only appear in big ambitions, it is just as active in small, seemingly insignificant moments. A particular food, a comfortable seat, a familiar distraction, a minor preference. The mind leans toward these things almost automatically. One teacher told a story about a meditator who had traveled far to practice in a monastery. The conditions were simple, the schedule was strict, the food was plain. Day after day, the meditator sat in silence, watching the breath, observing the movement of the mind. Over time, the mind became calm and focused. There were moments of deep stillness, moments when thinking quieted and awareness felt clear and spacious. The meditator sensed that something important was unfolding. Then one evening a bell rang to announce a small refreshment. It was nothing special, just tea and 2 small pieces of fruit. The meditator hesitated. On one side there was this quiet, settled mind, on the other a familiar pleasure. The wanting mind did not argue or shout, it simply leaned. And so the meditator stood up and went to eat. The moment passed. Nothing dramatic happened, no failure, no punishment, just a clear lesson. The wanting mind does not measure importance. It does not weigh long-term freedom against short-term comfort. It simply moves toward what it wants. The teachers used this kind of example to show that craving is not always dramatic or destructive. Often it is ordinary, casual, almost invisible, and because it feels so normal, we follow it without noticing. This is why freedom does not come from removing all pleasant things from life. The wanting mind will always find something. If not food, then comfort. If not comfort, then stimulation. If not stimulation, then thought. The issue is not the object, it is the movement. When we see this, a shift becomes possible. Instead of obeying the wanting mind, we begin to observe it. We notice the forward pull, the subtle leaning, the feeling that something else would be better than what is here, and we do not immediately act on it. This pause is small but powerful. In that pause, the wanting mind reveals something important. It is restless by nature. It cannot be satisfied for long. Even when it gets what it wants, it soon looks elsewhere. Seeing this directly begins to loosen its authority. The teachers emphasize that this is not about suppressing desire. Suppression only creates tension. It is about understanding desire well enough that it no longer controls us. When wanting is seen clearly, it loses some of its urgency. We can enjoy what is pleasant without chasing it. We can experience discomfort without immediately escaping it. We can rest in neutral moments without demanding more. This does not make life dull. It makes it spacious. The wanting mind narrows attention. Seeing the wanting mind opens it. Over time, the mind learns something new, that it can remain present even when desire arises, that it does not have to follow every impulse, that contentment is not found by feeding craving, but by understanding it. This is how the teachers described contentment. Not as getting what you want, but as wanting less, not as forcing satisfaction, but as recognizing when nothing is missing. When this understanding deepens, the mind begins to settle naturally. Not because it has been controlled, but because it no longer believes it must constantly reach forward to be at peace. And as the wanting mind is seen more clearly, the path turns next toward the quiet art of contentment itself. After seeing the restless nature of the wanting mind, the ancient teachers began to speak about something that seems almost radical in a world driven by desire. They spoke of contentment, not as resignation, not as giving up on life, but as a quiet strength that does not depend on having more. Contentment, as they understood it, is the ability to rest with what is present without feeling diminished by what is absent. It is the feeling of enoughness that arises when the mind stops measuring the moment against an imagined alternative. This teaching often surprises people. We tend to think of contentment as something passive, even dull. We imagine it as settling for less, lowering expectations, or withdrawing from engagement. But the teachers meant something very different. They saw contentment as clarity. The clarity to see when basic needs are met. The clarity to recognize when craving is unnecessary. The clarity to distinguish between genuine care and endless wanting. One teacher expressed it very simply. He said that contentment is the greatest wealth, not because it gives us everything we want, but because it frees us from the endless feeling that something is missing. The wanting mind always whispers that fulfillment lies ahead. Contentment listens and asks a different question. Is anything actually lacking right now? Often when we look closely, the answer is no. The body is breathing, the moment is unfolding, awareness is present, and yet the habit of dissatisfaction is so deeply ingrained that we overlook this simplicity. We assume that peace requires improvement, that happiness requires accumulation, that ease must be earned through effort. Contentment challenges this assumption. It does not deny that change is possible or that growth can be meaningful. It simply refuses to postpone well-being. It refuses to make peace conditional. This is why contentment is not dependent on circumstances. A person with contentment can enjoy abundance without clinging to it. A person with contentment can face simplicity without feeling deprived. A person with contentment can move through change without losing balance. The teachers noticed that without contentment, no amount of achievement ever feels sufficient. And with contentment, even ordinary moments carry a quiet richness. They did not teach contentment as a rule or a moral obligation. They taught it as a natural consequence of seeing clearly. When the wandering mind is understood, its urgency softens. When clinging is recognized, its grip loosens. And in the space that opens, contentment arises on its own. This is an important point. Contentment cannot be forced. It cannot be commanded. It cannot be achieved by willpower. It emerges when the mind stops insisting that things be different. At first, this may feel unfamiliar. We are so used to striving that resting can feel wrong. We may even feel guilty when we are not chasing something. But the teachers encouraged patience here. And contentment is not laziness, it is not stagnation, it is balance. It allows us to act when action is needed without being driven by lack. It allows us to rest when rest is appropriate without feeling that we are falling behind. When contentment is present, effort becomes cleaner, less desperate, less tense. We still care, we still respond. but we are no longer fueled by the belief that happiness is always somewhere else. This is why the teacher said that contentment protects the mind. It shields us from exhaustion. It guards against endless comparison. It creates a stable ground that does not collapse when conditions change. And from this stable ground, a different way of living becomes possible. To help people understand contentment more clearly, the ancient teachers often pointed to how the mind behaves in very ordinary situations. They noticed that dissatisfaction rarely comes from actual lack. It comes from comparison, from measuring what is present against an image of what could be. The moment the mind compares, contentment disappears. We eat a simple meal and enjoy it until we imagine a better one. We rest for a moment until we think we should be doing something else. We feel at ease until we wonder how long that ease will last. In each case, the experience itself is not the problem. The problem is the thought that something more is required. The teachers observe that contentment is always available in the same place before comparison begins. This does not mean we must stop improving our lives or responding to real needs. It means we learn to recognize the difference between genuine care and restless wanting, between wise action and compulsive striving. A content mind still acts, it still plans, it still responds to challenges, but it does so without the constant pressure to arrive somewhere else. One teacher described contentment as a form of inner sufficiency. When this sufficiency is present, the mind no longer feeds on excess. It stops searching for completion in external arrangements and begins to rest more naturally in experience itself. This rest is not dramatic. It feels quiet, ordinary, almost unremarkable, and yet it changes everything. When contentment is present, the mind no longer argues with the moment. It does not demand that life justify itself. It does not insist that happiness wait until conditions improve. This does not remove difficulty from life, but it changes how difficulty is held. Challenges are met without panic. Loss is felt without collapse. Pleasure is enjoyed without fear. The teachers were clear that contentment is not indifference. It is not the absence of care. In fact, it allows for deeper care because it is not distorted by desperation. A content person can help without needing to be needed. They can give without keeping score. They can act without tying their worth to outcomes. This is why contentment was described as wealth. It is a resource that cannot be taken away by changing circumstances. It does not fluctuate with success or failure. It does not depend on praise or protection. And perhaps most importantly, contentment creates the conditions for wisdom. When the mind is not constantly reaching forward, it becomes more attentive. When it is not obsessed with getting somewhere else, it sees more clearly what is already here. Insight arises more easily in a mind that is not agitated by endless wanting. The teachers emphasize that contentment grows gradually. It is strengthened each time we notice that nothing essential is missing in this moment. Each time we resist the impulse to add something unnecessary. Each time we rest without guilt. Over time, these moments accumulate. The mind learns that it can stop, that it can settle, that it can trust the present. And from this trust, a deeper freedom begins to emerge. And as contentment takes root, the path turns next toward understanding how even our thoughts can quietly bind us when we cling to them. After speaking of contentment, the ancient teachers turned their attention to a subtler form of attachment. It is not attachment to pleasure. It is not attachment to comfort. It is attachment to being right. They observe that even when the wandering mind quiets, the mind often finds another place to cling. It clings to opinions, interpretations, beliefs about how things are and how they should be. And this form of clinging can be even more binding than desire for pleasure. At first, attachment to views seems harmless. We tell ourselves that having opinions is natural, that beliefs help us navigate the world. That clarity comes from knowing where we stand. And to some extent, this is true. Discernment matters, understanding matters, wisdom matters. But the teachers noticed a crucial difference. There is a difference between holding a view and being held by a view. When a view is held lightly, it can guide action without hardening the heart. When it is clung to, it becomes a source of tensions, conflict, and separation. The mind contracts around it, defending it, as though it were part of the self. This is where suffering quietly enters. We cling to our opinions about people. We cling to our interpretations of events. We cling to our stories about what is fair, what is wrong, what should happen next. And when reality does not cooperate, frustration arises. Anger appears. Judgment follows close behind. The teacher saw that clinging to views creates a subtle sense of identity. I am someone who understands. I am someone who sees clearly. I am someone who knows how things really are. Once this identity forms, disagreement feels threatening. A challenge to our view feels like a challenge to who we are. Conversation turns into defense. Listening turns into waiting for our turn to speak. This happens so quickly that we often do not notice it. A thought arises. This is how it is. Another thought follows. This should not be otherwise. And suddenly the mind is locked in place. The teachers did not say that views are wrong. They said that clinging to views is costly. It narrows perception. It hardens the heart. It prevents us from seeing what is actually happening in front of us. They pointed out something subtle and important. Reality does not need our agreement. Truth does not require our defense. Life continues whether our opinions are confirmed or not, and yet we spend enormous energy trying to secure certainty. And we want the world to make sense. We want events to fit our understanding. We want our beliefs to be validated. This desire for certainty is understandable. It provides a sense of ground. But the teachers saw that it comes at a price. The more tightly we cling to views, the less flexible we become. The less open we are to learning. The less capable we are of responding wisely to change. They noticed that many conflicts, internal and external, are fueled not by circumstances, but by attachment to interpretation. Two people can witness the same event and suffer deeply because each clings to a different story about what it means. The event passes, the stories remain, and suffering continues. The teachers asked a simple but unsettling question. What if you did not need to be right in order to be at peace? This question does not ask us to abandon discernment. It asks us to examine the cost of certainty, to notice how often the mind chooses being right over being free. When we begin to see this clearly, something softens. We notice the tightening when an opinion is challenged. We notice the urge to correct, explain, or defend. We notice the discomfort of not knowing, and in noticing, a new possibility appears. Perhaps peace does not come from perfect understanding. Perhaps freedom does not depend on having the final answer. Perhaps clarity is found not in clinging to views, but in allowing them to come and go like everything else. This is the opening the teachers pointed toward. To loosen attachment to views, the ancient teachers did not argue people out of their beliefs. They invited them to look more closely at the experience of holding a view. They asked people to notice what happens inside when an opinion is challenged. The tightening in the chest, the heat behind the eyes, the sudden urgency to respond. These reactions appear before any careful reasoning takes place. They arise instantly, automatically revealing something important. The body responds as if a threat has appeared, even when the situation is simply a difference of perspective. This is how the teachers knew that clinging to views is not merely intellectual, it is emotional, it is physical, it is deeply tied to identity. When a view becomes part of who we think we are, letting go of it can feel like losing ground. Uncertainty feels dangerous, and not knowing feels like weakness. And so the mind grips tighter, convinced that certainty equals safety. But the teachers questioned this assumption. They noticed that certainty often brings tension rather than ease. The more rigid a view becomes, the more effort is required to maintain it. The mind must constantly monitor the world for anything that contradicts its position. It must defend, explain, justify, and correct. Peace becomes conditional. As long as the world agrees with us, we feel okay. As soon as it does not, agitation arises. This is not freedom. One teacher told of a practitioner who encountered two conflicting teachings from respected traditions. Each claimed authority. Each offered a different explanation of reality. The practitioner felt confused and uncomfortable, wanting to know which one was correct. After struggling for some time, something unexpected happened. The practitioner realized, "I do not know," not as a defeat, not as resignation, but as honesty. In that moment, the tension dissolved. The need to choose vanished. The practitioner could appreciate both teachings without clinging to either. The mind relaxed, no longer burdened by the demand for certainty. The teachers valued this kind of not knowing. Not ignorance, but openness. Not confusion, but humility. They saw that wisdom does not always come from adding answers. Sometimes it comes from releasing the need to have them. When the mind lets go of rigid views, it becomes more receptive, more curious, more responsive to what is actually happening. This does not mean abandoning discernment. The teachers were clear about this. Some actions lead to harm, some lead to well-being. Wisdom involves recognizing this, but wisdom does not require turning every understanding into an identity. A view can be used without being clung to. An opinion can guide action without hardening the heart. When we hold views lightly, we remain capable of listening. We can learn from others without feeling threatened. We can revise our understanding when new information appears. We can admit error without collapse. This flexibility is a form of strength. The teachers noticed that the most peaceful minds were often the least certain, not because they lacked understanding, but because they were not imprisoned by it. They could live comfortably with mystery. They could act wisely without needing absolute explanations. They compared clinging to views to gripping a tool too tightly. The tighter the grip, the less skillful the use. When the hand relaxes, movement becomes fluid. The same is true of the mind. When we loosen our grip on being right, the mind opens. When it opens, compassion becomes easier, understanding deepens, and conflict loses much of its power. The teachers did not ask people to stop thinking. They asked them to stop clinging, to notice when a view arises, to recognize it as a mental formation, to allow it to pass like any other experience. When this practice matures, something remarkable happens. Opinions still arise, but they no longer dominate. Disagreements still occur, but they no longer disturb the heart in the same way. Peace becomes less fragile. And as attachment to views loosens the path, turns next toward meeting even the deepest pain of life with clarity and compassion. There comes a point on the path where understanding is no longer enough. We may have seen impermanence in nature. We may have recognized the restlessness of the wanting mind. We may have loosened our grip on views and opinions. And yet, life has a way of testing what we think we understand. The deepest teachings are not learned in quiet reflection alone. They are learned when life removes what we love, when the ground we stand on gives way, when circumstances force us to face what cannot be controlled, avoided, or explained away. The ancient teachers knew this. They did not pretend that wisdom protects us from loss. They did not promise that understanding impermanence would spare us from grief. What they taught was something far more honest. Loss will come. Pain will arise. Everything we hold dear is subject to change. The question is not whether we will face loss. The question is how we will meet it. Many people encounter impermanence for the first time, not as a concept but as a shock. Something they assumed would last is suddenly gone. A person dies, a relationship ends, health fails, a future collapses. In these moments, the mind often reacts with disbelief. This should not have happened. This was not part of the plan. This is too much. The teachers saw that this shock intensifies suffering. Not because the loss is unreal, but because the mind secretly believed that it would be exempt. That impermanence applied to others, but not to this. Not to me, not to what I love most. This belief is rarely conscious. We may intellectually accept that everything changes. We may say the words, we may nod in agreement. But deep inside, we often live as though certain things are permanent, as though time will wait, as though loss is something that happens later. When life contradicts this assumption, the impact is devastating. The teachers spoke of grief with great care. They did not treat it as a failure of practice. Grief is not a mistake. It is the natural response of the heart to loss. Love and grief are inseparable. To love deeply is to expose ourselves to pain. The problem is not grief. The problem is resistance to grief. When we resist grief, when we argue with reality, when we refuse to accept what has happened, suffering multiplies. The mind replays the event endlessly, searching for an explanation, a way it could have been prevented, a version of the past that would undo the present. But no amount of thinking can reverse loss. The teachers pointed out that there is a crucial difference between pain and shock. Pain says this hurts. Shock says this should not be. Pain can be felt. Shock fights reality. When pain is allowed, it moves. When shock is held, it freezes. And in that frozen state, suffering becomes prolonged and heavy. This is why the ancient teachers emphasized learning impermanence deeply, not to become numb, but to become honest. To see clearly that nothing is guaranteed, that every meeting contains a parting, that every beginning carries an ending within it. This understanding does not make us love less, it makes us love more clearly. When we know that nothing can be held, we stop postponing presence. We stop assuming there will be time later. We begin to meet life more fully because we know how fragile it is. This is not easy wisdom. It does not arrive gently. It is often taught by life itself. And those who learn it deeply are often changed forever. Among the ancient teachers, there was a woman whose life became a living testament to this truth. She was not born into tragedy. Her early life was ordinary, shaped by the rhythms of family work and quiet hope. She married. She built a home. She waited for children to come, believing, as most people do, that the future would unfold according to expectation. For many years, that future did not arrive. She learned patience through waiting. She learned endurance through disappointment. And eventually, after long uncertainty, she became a mother. The joy she felt was deep and unguarded. She poured herself completely into love, believing at last that life had settled into something stable. Then life changed. 2 of her children died while still young. Not long after, her husband also passed away. In a short span of time, nearly everything she loved was taken from her. This was not philosophical impermanence. This was impermanence in the bones. Her grief was overwhelming. She later said that she nearly died from it. For years, she could barely rise from her bed. The world continued, but she did not move with it. The pain was too great. The loss too complete. Nothing in the teachings had prepared her for this. And yet it was precisely here in this unbearable place that something began to change. With nothing left to hold on to, she eventually turned toward stillness. Not out of hope, but out of exhaustion. She began to sit, to breathe, to remain present with what could not be escaped. What she discovered surprised everyone, including herself. Her mind settled quickly. Insight arose naturally. The truths others struggled to understand through effort revealed themselves to her directly. Impermanence was no longer an idea. It was the fabric of her lived experience. She did not deny her grief. She did not suppress her sorrow. She allowed it to be fully known. And in allowing it, something loosened. The pain moved. The shock softened. The resistance fell away. What remained was a vast tenderness, free from bitterness, free from clinging. She came to understand something crucial. Loss had not destroyed her life. Clinging had. When clinging dissolved, love remained, but without the demand that life be other than it was. Compassion deepened, wisdom stabilized, and from this place she became a teacher. When students came to her in grief, she did not offer comforting illusions. She spoke plainly. She reminded them that impermanence is not an exception. It is the rule, not to wound but to awaken. She once said to a grieving mother, "Why are you shocked? Everything that is born will die." This was not cruelty. It was clarity. Grief is natural. Shock comes from denial. When impermanence is truly understood, grief can move without freezing the heart. Love can exist without terror. Life can be met without illusion. This woman did not become free. Despite her suffering, she became free through it. Her story remains because it points to something essential. Understanding impermanence with the mind is helpful. Understanding it with the heart is transformative. When loss is met with honesty rather than resistance, something unshakable begins to emerge. A peace that does not depend on what remains. A freedom that survives even when everything familiar falls away. And from this deepest encounter with impermanence, the path turns next toward a freedom that does not depend on anything at all. After loss has stripped away what once felt solid, a new question quietly emerges. If nothing can be relied upon to remain, if everything we love is subject to change, where can true freedom be found? This question is not philosophical. It is deeply personal. It arises naturally after we have seen that circumstances cannot provide lasting security. That even the most precious relationships, the strongest bodies, the most carefully built lives are fragile. The ancient teachers did not turn away from this question. They followed it all the way to its end. They discovered that as long as freedom depends on something, health, success, relationships, understanding it remains vulnerable. It can be shaken, taken away, undermined by change. So they looked for a freedom that does not depend on conditions, a freedom that does not rise and fall with circumstance, a freedom that does not require the world to behave in a particular way, a freedom that remains intact even in the presence of loss, pain, and uncertainty. At first, this sounds impossible. We are so used to linking well-being to outcomes that the idea of unconditional freedom feels abstract, even unrealistic. How could peace exist when life is difficult? How could freedom remain when things fall apart? The teachers answered, not with arguments, but with observation. They noticed that suffering does not come directly from experience. It comes from resistance to experience, from the demand that things be different, from the insistence that what is happening should not be happening. When this resistance is present, even pleasant moments are fragile. When it is absent, even painful moments can be met with clarity. This is a subtle but radical shift. Freedom, they saw, is not found by controlling life. It is found by no longer fighting it. And this does not mean passivity. It does not mean indifference. It means meeting each moment without the added burden of clinging and resistance. To understand this, the teachers often invited people to look at the present moment very closely. Right now, something is happening. There may be a sound, a sensation, a thought, an emotion. Whatever it is already here. Arguing with it does not remove it. Resisting it does not make it disappear. But noticing it clearly without adding a story, without tightening around it, changes the entire experience. The teachers noticed that when resistance drops, experience flows. Pain still hurts, but it does not harden. Sadness still arises, but it does not consume. Joy still appears, but it does not create fear of loss. This is the beginning of unconditional freedom. It is not a freedom from life, it is a freedom within life. The teachers described it as a deep inner release, a letting go that does not depend on circumstances improving, a peace that does not require explanation or justification. This freedom is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It often feels ordinary at first, but it has a distinctive quality. It is steady, it is spacious, it is not easily disturbed. And once tasted even briefly, it changes our understanding of what is possible. We begin to see that we have been looking in the wrong place, that we have been trying to secure freedom by arranging conditions when freedom has always been closer than that. It had been waiting in the simple act of not resisting what is. Imagine standing beside a wide river at dawn. The air is cool, and a thin mist rises from the surface of the water. The river moves steadily, quietly, without effort. You can hear it if you listen closely. A soft, continuous sound as water slides over stones and bends around the curves of the land. At first glance, the river seems stable, almost unchanging. It has a name. It has banks. It appears to be a single, enduring thing. And yet if you watch carefully, you begin to notice something subtle and profound. The river is never the same from one moment to the next. The water you're looking at now was not here a moment ago. It has already moved on, continuing its long journey toward the sea. New water takes its place instantly, so seamlessly that the mind stitches it together and calls it one river. But this continuity is an illusion. The river is not a thing. It is an ongoing process, a constant flow, a movement without pause. Nothing within it stays, nothing can be held. The ancient teachers often used the image of a river to describe our lives. We speak of ourselves as though we were solid and fixed. We say, "This is who I am," as if pointing to something stable and enduring. But when we look closely, we see that our lives are flowing just like the river. Our bodies are changing with every breath, every heartbeat. Cells are born and die. Muscles strengthen and weaken. Hair turns gray. Skin wrinkles. The body you inhabit today is not the body you inhabited years ago, and it will not be the body you inhabit years from now. Our minds too are rivers. Thoughts arise, linger briefly, and pass away. Memories surface and sink back into obscurity. Moods shift. Opinions evolve. The thought you are having right now will be gone, soon replaced by another. Even the sense of being a continuous me is constructed from this rapid flow of changing experiences. Like the river, the mind appears stable only because its movement is constant. Yet despite this obvious truth, we often live as though change were a mistake. We build our hopes on the assumption that things will stay the way we want them to stay. We plan as if tomorrow were guaranteed. We cling to people, roles, and identities as though they could remain untouched by time. And when change inevitably arrives, we feel shocked, betrayed, unprepared. We ask, why is this happening, when the more honest question might be, how could it not? Sometimes change arrives gently. It unfolds so slowly that we hardly notice it happening. A child grows taller day by day until one day we suddenly realize they are no longer small. A friendship evolves, deepening or fading without a clear moment of transition. Our interests shift. Our priorities rearrange themselves quietly in the background of daily life. These changes rarely frighten us. They feel natural, even welcome. But at other times, change arrives like a flood, a sudden illness, a loss we never imagined, a relationship that ends without warning, a job that disappears. In these moments, the river seems violent and unforgiving. The current feels too strong. We feel swept away, powerless, afraid. The ground beneath our feet, which we assumed was solid, vanishes, and we are left struggling to stay afloat. The Buddha did not deny this fear. He did not pretend that sudden change is easy or painless. But he pointed out something crucial. The suffering does not come from change itself. It comes from our resistance to change. It comes from trying to freeze the river, from insisting that the water should stop flowing, just because we are afraid of where it might carry us. When we resist change, we exhaust ourselves. We fight against reality. We cling to what is already leaving and push away what is already arriving. This inner struggle adds a second layer of pain on top of whatever difficulty we are facing. The river flows on regardless, but we suffer more than necessary because we refuse to move with it. The teaching of the river invites us to a different relationship with change. Instead of trying to control the flow, we learn to float. Instead of gripping the banks in panic, we allow ourselves to be carried. This does not mean passivity or resignation. It means wisdom. It means recognizing that movement is the nature of life, and that peace comes not from stopping the river but from understanding it. If you watch the river long enough, you may notice something else. Even though the water is always moving, the river itself is never anxious. It does not rush. It does not hesitate. It does not argue with the landscape. It meets obstacles by flowing around them. It accepts what is given and keeps going. In this quiet persistence, there is a deep teaching. Change is not our enemy. It is the way life continues. There is a moment that comes for many people, often quietly, when they realize that no amount of effort can make life stay the same. It may come while watching a loved one age, noticing how time has gently reshaped their face. It may come while standing in an empty room after a chapter of life has ended. Or it may come unexpectedly in the middle of an ordinary day when something familiar suddenly feels distant, as if it already belongs to the past. In that moment, the truth of the river becomes undeniable. Everything is moving. The problem is not that life changes. The problem is that we expect it not to. From a young age, we are taught to build, to secure, to establish. We are encouraged to believe that if we work hard enough, plan carefully enough, and protect ourselves well enough, we can create something permanent. A permanent sense of safety. A permanent identity. A permanent happiness. But the river does not honor these contracts. It flows on indifferent to our expectations. This does not mean that effort is meaningless or that care is wasted. The river still has banks. Choices still matter. How we live shapes the journey. But none of it stops the movement. When we confuse influence with control, suffering begins. We try to command the river, and when it refuses, we feel powerless. Yet there is another way to relate to this truth. The ancient teachers spoke of wisdom as learning to align ourselves with change, rather than fighting it. This alignment begins with a simple but radical shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "How can I make this stay?" we ask, "How can I meet this fully, knowing it will pass?" Instead of building our sense of security on outcomes, we build it on presence, on the ability to be here with whatever the river brings. Think again of standing beside the river. If you kneel down and place your hand in the water, you feel the current immediately. The water does not stop for you. It moves across your skin and slips away. You can feel its coolness, its texture, its energy, but you cannot hold it. And yet in that brief contact, there is intimacy. The experience is complete even though it is fleeting. This is how life is meant to be lived. We often believe that if something does not last, it is somehow less valuable. But the opposite is true. It is precisely because moments do not last that they matter. The sound of laughter, the warmth of connection, the beauty of a sunrise, the feeling of understanding arising in the mind. These moments are precious because they are temporary. The river teaches us to appreciate without possessing, to love without clinging. When we stop demanding permanence, we discover a surprising kind of freedom. We no longer need to freeze time in order to feel safe. We begin to trust ourselves to meet change when it comes. This trust is not blind optimism. It is grounded in experience. We have already survived countless changes. We have already been carried through moments we once thought would break us. The river has taken us this far. There is a quiet strength that comes from knowing this. It is the strength of flexibility rather than rigidity. of openness rather than defense. When loss comes, we grieve, but we are not destroyed. When joy comes, we enjoy it fully without fear of its ending. We learn to live in rhythm with the flow instead of constantly swimming against it. The Buddha described this understanding as a form of awakening, not an escape from life, but a deep intimacy with it. To awaken is to see clearly that everything changes and to stop arguing with that fact. It is to release the exhausting habit of resistance and to rest in the movement of things as they are. The river does not promise calm waters, but it does promise honesty. As you reflect on your own life, you may notice places where you are still gripping the banks, places where fear has made you tense, unwilling to move. This is not a failure. It is simply human, and it is also an invitation. You can loosen your grip. You can allow yourself to float even a little. You can trust the river enough to let it carry you into the next moment. The river of change is not something we must conquer. It is something we must understand, and when we do, we find that it has been supporting us all along. And from the flowing river, we now turn our attention to something even lighter, something that falls without effort, teaching us how to release completely. In early autumn, before the cold fully arrives, there is a particular quality to the air. It is lighter than summer, clearer, as if the world itself is exhaling. In this season, trees begin a quiet and patient work. They let go. A single leaf hangs from a branch. It has been there all summer, drinking in sunlight, moving gently with the wind, doing exactly what it was meant to do. Now its color begins to change. Green softens into yellow, deepens into gold. Nothing is wrong. Nothing has failed. This is simply the next phase of its life. For a long time, the leaf remains attached. It does not rush. It does not decide when to fall. It stays until staying is no longer possible. Then one day, almost without warning, it releases. There is no struggle, no hesitation. The leaf lets go of the branch and begins its descent. It does not fall straight down. It turns, it drifts. It is carried by currents of air it cannot see. Sometimes it rises briefly. Sometimes it spins. Sometimes it pauses as if suspended. The leaf does not know where it will land. And yet there is a strange grace in its movement. It is not resisting gravity. It is cooperating with it. The ancient teachers often pointed to images like this to describe the mind at ease. Not a mind that controls everything, but a mind that knows how to release. A mind that does not cling to what it cannot keep. A mind that trusts the natural movement of life. We, however, are trained in the opposite direction. From a young age, we learn to hold tightly. We grasp objects. We cling to people. We grip ideas, roles, identities. We learn to measure safety by how firmly we can secure things. And because of this training, letting go can feel frightening. It can feel like loss, like failure, like falling. But the leaf teaches something different. Letting go is not collapse. It is not destruction. It is a transition. Consider your own hand. Close it into a fist. Feel the tension in the fingers, the forearm, the wrist. A clenched fist is strong, but it is also rigid. It can hold, but it cannot receive. It cannot feel subtle textures. It cannot rest. Now slowly open the hand. Let the fingers soften. Let the palm relax. Nothing dramatic happens, yet everything changes. The hand is still there. It has not disappeared, but it is no longer grasping. It is available. The teachers used this image again and again. The open hand is the symbol of non-clinging. It does not reject experience, and it does not imprison it. It allows things to come and allows them to go. A butterfly can land on an open hand. If the hand closes, the butterfly is crushed or driven away. If the hand remains open, the butterfly may rest there for a moment, then leave on its own. The beauty of the encounter is not extended by grasping. It is destroyed by it. Our experiences are like this. Joy arrives. If we cling, fear appears immediately. Fear of loss, fear of change. Sadness arrives. If we resist, it hardens into suffering. But if the hand remains open, joy can be enjoyed fully, and sadness can move through without defining us. The leaf does not cling to the branch out of loyalty. It does not accuse the tree of abandonment. It falls because falling is now the natural movement. In the same way, many of the things we cling to in our lives are already loosening. Relationships change, roles shift, bodies age, identities evolve. Clinging does not stop this. It only makes the falling painful. When the leaf finally reaches the ground, its journey is not over. It rests, it decomposes, it becomes nourishment for the soil. What looks like an ending is also a transformation. Letting go allows the cycle to continue. The open hand is not empty in a negative sense. It is empty in a receptive sense. It is ready, it is free. Learning to live this way does not happen all at once. The fist has been clenched for a long time. But even brief moments of opening matter. Even a single breath, released without resistance, changes something. The falling leaf does not ask whether it is ready. It simply responds to the moment when holding on is no longer possible. In that response, there is no fear, only movement. As the leaf settles onto the forest floor, it joins countless others that have fallen before it. Together they form a soft, uneven carpet, cushioning each step, quieting the sound of movement through the woods. What once clung tightly to the branch now serves a different purpose. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been lost. This is how the teachers invited us to see our own lives. Letting go is not the erasure of meaning. It is the continuation of it in another form. When we release what we can no longer hold, we make space for something new to arise. When we stop clinging to one chapter, another can begin. Yet the habit of clenching is deeply ingrained. Even when we understand the teaching intellectually, the body still tightens, the mind still reaches. We may say we want freedom, but our hands remain closed. This is not a moral failure. It is conditioning. It is the residue of years spent believing that safety comes from control. The practice is gentle. It does not demand that we pry the fingers open by force. That only creates more tension. Instead, the practice is to notice the clenching, to feel it, to recognize its cost. And then when we are ready, to soften just a little. Often this softening begins in very small moments. A breath that is allowed to leave the body fully. A thought that is noticed without being followed. An emotion that is felt without being named or judged. Each time this happens, the fist loosens. The hand remembers how to open. The teachers emphasize that non-clinging does not mean withdrawing from life. An open hand can still hold a cup of tea. It can still touch another hand. It can still work, build, create. The difference is in how it holds. Gently, temporarily, without the demand that things remain exactly as they are. This is a profound shift. We begin to participate fully in life while knowing that everything we touch will change. We love while knowing that parting is inevitable. We build while knowing that structures will one day fall. We enjoy while knowing that enjoyment will pass. This knowledge does not diminish life, it deepens it. The falling leaf does not grieve its descent, it does not resist the ground, it simply completes its movement. In the same way, when we stop resisting the natural unfolding of our lives, a quiet dignity appears. We move with change instead of being dragged by it. The open hand becomes a way of being. We receive what comes, we release what goes, we stop measuring our well-being by how tightly we can hold on. We begin to trust the rhythm of coming and going, and in this trust, something unexpected happens. Fear softens, urgency fades, the constant inner struggle relaxes. What remains is a simple presence with what is here now, unburdened by the need to secure the future or preserve the past. The leaf has fallen, the tree stands bare, winter approaches, and still life continues. From the quiet lesson of the falling leaf, we now turn toward the restless force that pulls the hand closed. Again and again, the subtle hunger that says, just one more. There is something so familiar to us that we almost never question it. Something that has been with us from the moment we arrived in this world, and that will remain with us until the moment we leave. It is so constant, so ordinary, that it easily disappears into the background of our lives. That something is the breath. We rarely notice the breath unless something is wrong. When it becomes difficult, when it is interrupted, when it is taken away. Most of the time, breathing happens without our permission and without our attention. And yet the ancient teachers said that within this simple, automatic process lies one of the clearest gateways to freedom. The breath is a perfect teacher because it never stops changing. Each inhalation arises, fills the body, and then fades. Each exhalation releases, softens, and dissolves. No breath can be held forever. No breath can be repeated. Every breath is new, and every breath is already passing. If you watch the breath closely, you begin to see impermanence directly, not as an idea, but as a living process. The beginning of the inhale is not the same as its middle. The middle is not the same as its end. The exhale follows its own path, flowing outward until it too disappears. And then, without effort, another breath begins. This cycle has no owner. You do not decide when the next breath will come. Even when you try to control it, the breath eventually reclaims itself. It insists on moving. It refuses to be possessed. The teachers often said that the breath shows us how life actually works. Life comes in, life goes out. There is no moment where it freezes and waits for us to feel secure. The breath does not ask whether we are ready. It simply arrives, and when its time is done, it leaves. We often try to treat our lives differently. We try to hold on to moments, to relationships, to identities, to states of mind. We tense around experience as if tightening will make it stay. But the breath shows us another way. It shows us that allowing movement does not lead to collapse. It leads to continuity. When we resist the breath, when we hold it too tightly or force it unnaturally, discomfort arises immediately. The body responds with tension. The mind becomes agitated. But when we allow the breath to move freely, the body softens. The nervous system settles. There is a sense of ease that does not require explanation. This is not accidental. The breath is deeply connected to the state of the mind. A tight mind creates a tight breath. A soft breath supports a soft mind. By simply allowing the breath to be as it is, we begin to undo layers of unconscious resistance. The breath also teaches humility. No matter how strong we are, no matter how accomplished, no matter how much we think we understand, we are always just one breath away from vulnerability. This is not meant to frighten us. It is meant to bring us back to what is real. Each breath is a reminder that life is happening now, not in memory, not in anticipation, but here in this movement, in this moment. When the mind wanders, the breath is still here. When the future feels overwhelming, the breath continues quietly in the present. The ancient teachers did not ask us to believe in complicated ideas to find freedom. They asked us to look, to feel, to notice what is already happening. The breath was one of their simplest and most powerful invitations. It does not promise control. It offers honesty. It does not guarantee comfort. It offers truth. And if we are willing to stay with it even briefly, it begins to show us how to live in a world that never stops moving. If we stay with the breath a little longer, something subtle begins to reveal itself. At first, we may think we are watching the breath, but over time it becomes clear that the breath is happening on its own. It does not belong to us in the way we assume. It is not obeying a controller. It is simply unfolding according to conditions. This realization can be quietly unsettling. If the breath is not truly mine, then what else in my life am I claiming ownership over that is also moving on its own? Thoughts arise without being invited. Emotions surge without permission. Sensations change without consultation. The breath becomes a doorway into a deeper truth. Much of what we call my life is not being managed by a central authority at all, and yet this is not a cause for despair. It is a cause for relief. When we stop trying to own the breath, we stop struggling with it. We allow it to come and go. In the same way, when we stop trying to own our experiences, we begin to meet them with less resistance. We are no longer trying to make them permanent or push them away. We are simply present. The breath also teaches us about trust. Every exhale is a small act of faith. When the body releases the air, it does not panic about whether the next inhale will come. It lets go completely, and again the inhale arrives. This has been happening your entire life. The body knows how to trust this rhythm even when the mind does not. We often live as though letting go is dangerous, as though release means disappearance. But the breath shows us the opposite. Letting go is what allows continuation. If we refuse to exhale, the inhale would become impossible. Holding on too tightly is what actually cuts off life. There is a moment between breaths that many people overlook. After the exhale finishes, before the next inhale begins, there is a brief pause, a stillness. Nothing is wrong in this pause. The body is not lacking. It is simply resting. This pause is not something we create. It appears naturally when we stop interfering. The ancient teachers paid close attention to this space. They saw that it mirrors something much larger. In life, too, there are pauses, endings before beginnings, moments of uncertainty where the next step is not yet visible. When we resist these pauses, anxiety arises. When we allow them, there is a quiet peace. The breath teaches us that we do not need to rush the next moment. It will come on its own. Our task is not to force it, but to be present for what is here now, even when that is simply not knowing. As we practice staying with the breath, we may notice another shift. We begin to experience life less as a series of problems to solve and more as a flow to participate in. The breath is not trying to get anywhere. It is not trying to improve itself. It is simply expressing life as it moves through the body. When we align with this simplicity, something in us relaxes. The constant striving softens. The need to control eases. We begin to sense a freedom that does not depend on outcomes, a freedom that exists even when nothing special is happening. This is why the breath has always been central to the path. Not because it is sacred in itself, but because it is honest. It shows us impermanence without drama. It teaches letting go without philosophy. It invites presence without demand. Each breath asks nothing of us except that we allow it. And in learning to allow the breath, we begin to learn how to allow our lives. From the quiet rhythm of breathing, we now turn toward the deeper question that arises when we ask who exactly is experiencing all of this. We have listened to the breath rise and fall, watched it appear and disappear, and felt how life continues without our command. And yet even as everything changes, there still seems to be someone here. Someone who hears these words, someone who feels the breath, someone who remembers plans, worries, and hopes. This sense of someone is so intimate that we rarely question it. It feels obvious. But the ancient teachers invited us to look more closely, not to adopt a belief, but to investigate our experience with the same honesty we used when watching the breath. They asked a simple question: who is experiencing this? At first, the mind answers quickly, I am. But if we pause, we notice this is more reflex than discovery. So the teachers suggested a different approach. Instead of answering with words, turn attention back toward the one who seems to be aware. Look for the looker. Start with what feels most obvious, the body. We point to the body and say, this is me. But the body is not stable. The body of childhood is gone. The body of 10 years ago is gone. Even the body of yesterday has changed. If the body is always shifting, which body is truly me? Maybe the self is a particular part, perhaps the head, the heart, the brain. Yet when we look closely, we find only sensations, pressure, warmth, tingling, movement. Each sensation arises and passes like the sound of a bell. None of them says I'm the owner. So perhaps the self is the mind. Our thoughts feel personal. Our inner voice seems to belong to someone. But watch a thought for a moment. Where does it come from? It appears suddenly without warning. And where does it go? It fades, dissolves, is replaced. If thoughts are always changing, which thought is the self? The thought you had a minute ago is gone. The thought you are having now will vanish soon. A stream of thoughts cannot be a solid someone any more than a river can be a fixed thing. We might then say, I am my memories. But memory is also unstable. It shifts over time. Details are added, removed, reinterpreted. If the story keeps being edited, who is the editor? Perhaps the self is emotion. When anger arises, it feels like I am angry. When fear arises, I am afraid. But if we look carefully, emotion is an event, not an identity. Anger rises, burns, cools, and passes. Fear tightens, then softens. Emotions are weather, not the sky. At this point, many people notice something important. Even though body, thoughts, and emotions change, there is still awareness that knows them. There is a knowing of sensation, a knowing of thought. So we may conclude, I am the witness. I am the awareness that watches everything come and go. To test this, try something very simple. Notice one inhale. Notice one exhale. Now ask quietly, without answering too fast, who knows this breath? A response may appear as words or as an image or as a feeling of me. Whatever appears, notice that it too is something known. It arises within awareness, and it can be observed. This is a helpful step because it creates space. But the teachers did not stop here. They asked us to look even more closely. If you are the witness, can you find it? Right now, turn attention toward the sense of being the observer. Where is it located? What is its shape? Does it have edges when you search for it? Do you find an actual thing, or do you find only more experience, more sensations, more thoughts, more subtle feelings of me? There is an old story about a seeker who begged a master for peace. The master said, "Bring me your mind and I will pacify it." The seeker searched everywhere. Thoughts appeared and disappeared. Feelings rose and fell. But the mind itself could not be found as a solid object. When the seeker admitted, "I cannot find it," the master replied, "Then it is already pacified." The point is not to win an argument about whether the self exists. The point is to see directly that what we cling to as I is hard to locate when examined closely. And when that clinging loosens, something in the heart relaxes. Life becomes lighter, more immediate, less trapped in the anxious need to protect an identity. For now, we do not need to solve the mystery. We only need to begin the investigation with sincerity. The question remains simple and alive. Who is experiencing this? Do not rush. Let the question open like a hand. In that openness, a quiet freedom may already be present right now. When we continue this inquiry with patience, something unexpected begins to happen. The question, who is experiencing this, stops feeling like a puzzle to solve and starts to feel like an opening. Each time we look for the self and fail to find it as a solid thing, a small release occurs. The effort of holding an identity loosens, even if only briefly. At first, this can feel disorienting. We are so accustomed to standing somewhere, to being someone, that not finding a center can feel like groundlessness. The mind may react with subtle fear. If there is no solid me, then what am I standing on? What holds my life together? The ancient teachers understood this fear. They did not dismiss it. But they also knew that what feels like groundlessness is often the beginning of freedom. Consider moments in your own life when the sense of self naturally faded. Perhaps you were absorbed in music, completely lost in sound. Perhaps you were deeply engaged in creative work where hours passed unnoticed. Perhaps you were watching a sunset or holding a sleeping child, and for a moment there was no me commenting, judging, or narrating. There was just experience. In those moments, did life stop functioning? Did awareness disappear? No. In fact, those moments are often remembered as the most alive, the most peaceful, the most intimate. The absence of a strong sense of self did not diminish experience. It intensified it. This points to something important. The self is not the source of awareness. It is an appearance within awareness. A useful appearance in many practical situations, but not the core of what we are. The Buddha described this with radical clarity. He said that suffering arises when we take what is impermanent, unstable, and changing and claim it as I or mine. The body changes, so we fear aging and illness. Thoughts change, so we fear confusion and loss of control. Emotions change, so we fear pain and instability. Even awareness, when subtly claimed as my awareness, becomes another thing to defend. But when nothing is claimed, something relaxes deeply. This does not mean that we vanish or become indifferent. The body still functions. The mind still thinks, emotions still arise, responsibilities still exist. The difference is that they are no longer happening to a center that must be protected at all costs. They are simply happening. The teachers sometimes describe this as experience without an owner. Not cold or detached experience, but intimate, immediate, unfiltered experience. Without the constant contraction of "this is happening to me," there is more space to respond wisely rather than react defensively. One of the most subtle insights comes when we turn the inquiry even toward awareness itself. We may notice that awareness feels present, continuous, reliable. And yet when we look carefully, even the sense of being aware fluctuates. Sometimes it is sharp, sometimes dull. Sometimes spacious, sometimes narrow. Even the witness changes. This does not mean that nothing exists. It means that nothing solid can be found to stand on. And paradoxically, this is what allows everything to be held. An old image compares the self to a clenched fist and freedom to an open hand. When the fist is clenched, it feels strong, but it is tense and limited. When the hand opens, it feels vulnerable, but it can receive touch and release. The inquiry into non-self is not about destroying the fist by force. It is about seeing that it does not need to be clenched in the first place. As this seeing deepens, a new kind of confidence appears. Not the confidence of identity, but the confidence of presence. Life can be met as it is. Praise and blame come and go. Gain and loss come and go. Pleasure and pain come and go. And through it all, there is a simple knowing that does not belong to anyone. This is why the teachers emphasized investigation over belief. They did not ask us to accept the idea of non-self. They asked us to look, to search, to see for ourselves whether the self we are protecting can actually be found. And each time we look honestly, we may notice the same thing. Thoughts arise, but no thinker is found. Feelings arise, but no owner is found. Awareness is present, but no center can be located. What remains is openness, presence, life happening. This is not something to grasp. The moment we try to hold it as an experience, it slips away. It is discovered again and again through letting go. The question, who is experiencing this, is not meant to be answered once and for all. It is meant to be lived, asked gently, returned to repeatedly. Each time it is asked sincerely, another layer of clinging softens, and in that softening a quiet joy may appear. Not the joy of achievement, but the joy of relief. The relief of not having to be someone in order to be alive. From this open question of who is experiencing life, we now move toward the final clarity that nothing at all needs to be claimed as I or mine. There is a line in the ancient teachings that is so simple it can slip past, and yet it contains the whole path. The Buddha said, "Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. Not some things, not most things, nothing whatsoever." At first the mind may resist. Surely we need a foundation. Surely there are safe places where holding on is reasonable. Our health, our family, our plans, our sense of being a good person, even our spiritual progress. But the teaching does not negotiate because it points at a freedom that cannot be shaken, a freedom that depends on nothing, because anything depended upon can be lost. To understand this, it helps to feel how clinging actually works. Clinging is not abstract. It is a contraction. When we want something to continue, the body tightens. When we want something to stop, the body tightens. When we fear being diminished, the heart hardens. Clinging is the invisible fist that closes around experience. Non-clinging is not a special state. It is simply the absence of that fist. Experience can still be present, vivid, even intense, but the grip is gone. This is why the instruction is so direct. It does not tell us to manufacture peace. It tells us to stop grasping. The doorway into this is the simplest thing in the world of feeling. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Feelings are constantly arising in the body and mind. A pleasant warmth when someone smiles at you. An unpleasant sting when you receive criticism. A neutral dullness while waiting in line. Each feeling is a small wave. It rises, crests, and fades, and almost immediately the mind tries to turn the wave into a contract. If it is pleasant, the mind says, keep it, repeat it, make it mine. If it is unpleasant, the mind says, get rid of it, protect me. This should not be. If it is neutral, the mind says escape, find something else. In each case, the mind adds a second layer, grasping. And that second layer is where agitation begins. The Buddha offered a practical training. Whatever feelings arise, contemplate their impermanence. Notice their fading. Notice their vanishing. Notice that even the strongest feeling cannot hold its shape. When we see this clearly, the hand naturally opens. Why cling to what is already changing? Why build identity on what cannot stay? This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about letting emotion be fully known without turning it into I or mine. Anger can arise without my anger. Sadness can be present without my sadness. Joy can appear without my joy. The experience remains intimate, but the ownership is removed. Without ownership, there is more space and less fear. Try it in a small moment. A desire appears to check your phone, to refresh a page, to eat something sweet. Instead of obeying or fighting, notice the desire as a feeling. Where is it in the body? What is its texture? Does it stay the same? Watch it for 30 seconds. Often you will see it shift to die, soften, and pass. Nothing dramatic, just the natural fading of a wave. In that fading is a taste of freedom. This practice becomes especially clear in meditation. A calm state arises and the mind whispers, this is it, stay here. The whisper itself is clinging. A restless state arises and the mind whispers, I am failing, fix this. That too is clinging. The instruction is the same. In both cases, do not take it personally. Let the state be known and let it pass. In daily life, the same rule applies to praise and blame, gain and loss. Notice the tightening, then soften. Open the hand again. Freedom is not elsewhere. It is this release now here. The teaching, nothing whatsoever, is not meant to make life bleak. It is meant to make it light. When we stop claiming, we can love without fear. We can care without possession. We can act without needing the world to confirm our identity. The mind becomes less occupied with defending a self and more available to meet what is here. As this understanding deepens, we begin to see how thoroughly clinging shapes our lives. It is not only present in moments of obvious desire or aversion. It appears in subtle places we rarely question. We cling to being competent. We cling to being understood. We cling to being seen as kind, intelligent, or spiritually mature. Even the wish to be free can become another form of grasping. This is why the teaching is so uncompromising. Nothing whatsoever leaves no corner untouched. It includes our best qualities, our highest ideals, and our most cherished insights. Anything that can be held as I or mine can become a burden. Anything that becomes a reference point for identity can be threatened. At first, this can feel unsettling. If nothing is to be clung to, what remains? How do we live without ground? The teachers answered this, not with theory, but with experience. When clinging stops, life does not collapse. It continues more fluidly, more honestly, with less friction. Imagine carrying a heavy pack for years without realizing it. Your shoulders ache. Your steps are slow. You assume this weight is simply how life feels. Then one day you set the pack down. At first you feel strange, almost unbalanced. Something familiar is missing. But soon you notice how easily you move, how natural it feels to walk without strain. Non-clinging is like this. The weight we drop was never required. The practice is not to get rid of experience, but to get rid of ownership. Pain can still arise, but without the added story of "this should not be happening to me." Pleasure can still arise, but without the anxious fear of losing it. Responsibility can still be met, but without the rigid identity that says "this defines me." One teacher described this as learning to act without leaning. We still do what needs to be done. We still care. We still choose. But we stop leaning our sense of self on outcomes. When praise comes, we do not inflate. When blame comes, we do not collapse. When success appears, we enjoy it without grasping. When failure appears, we learn without shame. This does not make us passive. In fact, it often makes us more responsive. Without the constant background noise of self-protection, we can see situations more clearly. We can respond to what is needed rather than reacting to what is feared. Compassion becomes more natural when it is not filtered through me. There is a quiet courage in this way of living. To not cling is to accept vulnerability. It is to live without guarantees. But it is also to discover a resilience that does not depend on control. When nothing is claimed, nothing can be taken away. When identity is loosened, loss does not strike the same target. The Buddha pointed out that when clinging ends, agitation ends. This is not poetic language. It is observable. Watch the mind when it stops arguing with the present. Watch the body when it stops bracing. There is a settling, a simplicity, a sense of being at home, even when circumstances are imperfect. This is why the teaching is practical rather than philosophical. It can be tested right now. A sound arises. Do not cling. A thought appears. Do not cling. A feeling moves through the body. Do not cling. Each moment becomes an opportunity to release. Not to push away, not to deny, but to let be. Over time, this practice reveals something unexpected. Letting go is not something we do once. It is something life does through us when we stop interfering. The hand opens by itself when it realizes there is nothing worth crushing and nothing that needs to be held. When the Buddha said nothing whatsoever, he was not asking us to believe him. He was inviting us to look, to see what happens when we stop claiming experience as I or mine, to discover for ourselves that peace is not produced by holding on but uncovered by release. And when this becomes clear, even briefly, we may find ourselves smiling at how hard we worked to carry what was never required. The path becomes lighter, the heart becomes quieter. Life continues, but the struggle softens. From this clear seeing that nothing needs to be claimed, we now turn toward the final image that gathers everything together, the opening of the clenched fist. There is an image the ancient teachers returned to again and again when words were no longer enough. They spoke of a fist that has been clenched for a very long time. So long that the muscles have forgotten how it feels to relax. So long that clenching feels normal, even necessary. This fist is not in the hand, it is in the mind. It closes when pleasure appears, trying to trap it before it disappears. It closes when pain arises, trying to push it away before it is fully felt. It closes around ideas, identities, roles, and stories, tightening whenever they feel threatened. Most of us do not realize this fist is there. We simply live with the tension it creates, assuming that life is supposed to feel this way. A constant effort, a subtle strain, a background sense of holding ourselves together. The teachers noticed that much of our suffering does not come from what happens to us, but from this clenching. Not from experience itself, but from the way we grip experience. The fist is the habit of resistance, the reflex of control, the belief that safety comes from holding on. At first, this belief seems reasonable. If we hold tightly enough, maybe we can keep what we love. Maybe we can protect ourselves from loss. Maybe we can secure a solid sense of who we are. And for a time, it can feel as though this strategy works. But over time, the cost becomes clear. Holding requires effort. Effort creates fatigue. Fatigue hardens into fear. The fist never truly rests. Even when things are going well, it stays alert, guarding against the moment they might change. Even joy becomes fragile when it is held too tightly. Fear of loss shadows every pleasure. Anxiety seeps into moments that could have been simple. The ancient teachers did not ask us to force the fist open. They knew that struggle only creates another layer of clenching. Instead, they invited us to see the fist clearly, to feel its tension, to notice its consequences, and to ask a quiet question: what am I really protecting? When we look honestly, we may discover that what we are protecting is an idea, an image of ourselves, a story about how life should be. And when that story is threatened, the fist tightens automatically. But stories are fragile things. They cannot bear the weight we place on them. There is a story of an elderly teacher who had practiced for many decades. One day, while walking slowly with a cane, she noticed something she had never seen so clearly before. With each step, she was leaning on the cane, leaning on the ground, leaning on awareness itself as something solid. In that moment, she saw that even this leaning was unnecessary. She saw that everything she was relying on was changing. The body was changing. The sensations were changing. Even the sense of being aware was shifting from moment to moment. There was nothing stable to lean on, no final ground. For an instant, the mind recoiled. If there is nothing to lean on, then what supports life? And then just as quickly, something released. The fist opened. She later described it not as an achievement, but as a falling into life rather than standing apart from it. There was no longer a need to brace, to defend, to hold. Experience continued, but without a center that needed protection. This is what the opening fist reveals. Life does not need to be held together. It is already happening. Breathing continues. Sensing continues. Hearing, seeing, thinking, feeling, all of it unfolds without a manager gripping the controls. When the fist opens, we do not disappear. We become more intimate with what is here, more responsive, more alive, without the constant tension of self-protection. Energy is freed. Attention becomes softer and wider. This does not mean that pain vanishes or that difficulty no longer arises. It means that pain is no longer compounded by resistance. Difficulty is no longer personalized as a failure of me. Life is met directly without the extra layer of struggle. The opening of the fist is not dramatic. It may feel almost ordinary. A small easing in the chest, a softening of the jaw, a breath that releases more fully. But within this simplicity is a profound shift. The end of fighting what is already here. The teacher said that freedom is not found by tightening our grip, but by discovering that the grip is not needed. The fist opens when it sees there is nothing to defend and no one who needs defending. This opening can happen in an instant, and it can also unfold gradually. Each time we notice clinging and choose not to follow it, the fingers loosen a little. Each time we allow experience to be as it is without claiming it or rejecting it, the habit weakens. The fist has been clenched for a long time. It will not open all at once, but it does not need to. Even a small opening changes everything. When the fist begins to open even slightly, life does not suddenly become perfect. Problems do not disappear. The world does not rearrange itself to our liking. What changes is something far more fundamental. The relationship to experience softens. We begin to notice that much of what we called my life was actually a pattern of grasping. Grasping for certainty, grasping for control, grasping for reassurance that things would remain familiar. When the fist loosens, these efforts are seen for what they are: attempts to steady what was never still. At first, this can feel strangely vulnerable. Without the fist, there is nothing to brace against discomfort. No familiar tightening to signal I am in control. But this vulnerability is not weakness. It is sensitivity. It is openness. It is the willingness to feel life directly without armor. The teachers observed that when the fist opens, the heart often opens with it. Compassion becomes more natural, not because we are trying to be kind, but because the boundaries of me feel less rigid. Other people's pain is no longer so separate from our own. Their joy is not something to envy or compare. It is simply another expression of life moving. In this openness, something unexpected appears: trust. Not trust in outcomes, but trust in process. Trust that life can be met moment by moment. Trust that we do not need to know how everything will turn out in order to live fully now. This trust is quiet. It does not make declarations. It simply shows up as less urgency, less defensiveness, less need to prove or protect. Decisions are still made, actions are still taken, but they arise from clarity rather than fear. The opening fist also changes how we meet endings. When something leaves a role, a relationship, a phase of life, we feel the loss, but we are not shattered by it. The hand that is open does not accuse itself for failing to hold on. It understands that letting go was never a choice. It was always the nature of things. This understanding brings a deep dignity to loss. Grief can be honored without becoming identity. Sadness can be felt without turning into despair. Even death, when contemplated honestly, loses some of its terror. Not because it is denied, but because there is no longer a rigid self-demanding permanence. The teachers sometimes said that awakening is nothing special. It is simply the end of unnecessary effort. The end of holding up a self that was never as solid as it seemed. When the fist opens, there is relief. A sense of having put something down that we did not realize we were carrying. Life continues exactly as before. Sounds arise, thoughts appear, feelings move through the body. The difference is subtle but unmistakable. There is less friction, less argument with what is, more space around everything. This is not something to achieve, it is something to notice. Each time you catch the fist clenching around a thought, an emotion, a plan, you have an opportunity. You can tighten further, or you can soften. You can insist, or you can allow. The path does not ask for perfection. It asks for honesty, for the willingness to see where we are still gripping and to gently release when we can. Over time, these small releases accumulate. The fist opens not by force, but by understanding. And when the fist opens, what remains is not emptiness in a bleak sense. It is openness, capacity, a life that can move, change, and respond without being trapped by the need to secure itself. This is where the path leads, not to a special state, but to an ordinary freedom. A freedom that was never absent, only obscured by clenching. Life does not need to be held. It needs to be lived. As we come to the close of this long journey together, nothing new needs to be added. Nothing more needs to be explained. Nothing needs to be achieved. What has been offered was never meant to give you something extra to carry. It was meant to help you put something down. From the very beginning, we asked a simple question. What does it mean to be truly free? Not the freedom that depends on conditions, not the freedom that comes and goes with success or failure, not the freedom that waits for life to finally become easy, but a freedom that remains even when everything changes. Along the way, we met wandering monks, grieving mothers, silent bells, falling leaves, flowing rivers, and clenched fists slowly opening. Each story pointed in the same direction again and again from a different angle with a different voice. Nothing lasts, nothing can be held, nothing needs to be owned. And because of this, peace is possible. Not because life becomes stable, but because we stop demanding that it be so. You may notice something now if you pause for a moment. Even after all these words, life is still exactly as it was before. Breath is still breathing. Sounds are still coming and going. Thoughts are still appearing and disappearing. And yet perhaps something is softer. Perhaps the grip is a little looser. Perhaps the urgency has eased. Perhaps the need to fix, control, or understand everything has relaxed just enough to let you rest. This is not a dramatic ending. True endings rarely are. The path of letting go does not end with a conclusion. It continues quietly, invisibly, in ordinary moments. When a thought arises and you do not chase it. When a feeling appears and you allow it to pass. When something pleasant comes and you enjoy it without grasping. When something difficult comes and you meet it without resistance. Each of these moments is the path itself. You do not need to remember every teaching you heard. You do not need to recall every story or image. You do not need to agree with every word. If one simple understanding remains, it is enough. Whatever is arising right now does not need to be held. Not held as permanent, not held as mine, not held as who I am. Life can be lived with open hands. Open hands do not mean empty hands. They mean hands that can receive and release without fear. You will still love, you will still care, you will still feel joy and sorrow, hope and disappointment. Letting go does not remove you from life. It brings you fully into it, without the armor of grasping, without the weight of constant resistance, without the exhausting effort of being someone who must always be protected. In this openness, something gentle becomes clear. Peace was never missing. It was simply obscured by holding too tightly. When the fist relaxes, what remains is not nothing. What remains is presence. What remains is a quiet trust in the flow of things. And so as this long night gently settles, you can allow yourself to rest. Here, with the long night, there is nothing more you need to do, nothing more you need to figure out, nothing you need to hold on to. If sleep comes, let it come. If wakefulness remains, let it remain. Either way, you are already enough. Thank you for spending this time here. Thank you for listening, for breathing, for being willing to soften. May your mind be light, may your heart be at ease, and may you drift into rest, knowing that you do not need to cling in order to be safe. Good night. Sleep well.